Hope my screen is visible. Yeah. In the last class, we had seen the multiple antenna concepts, wherein what happens to exactly we have not defined what is multiplexing gain, but we have understood how exactly transmission happens from different streams of antennas if you connect it parallelly, and we will see how rate can be improved if you have a multiple input multiple output system. And moreover, you have a lot of advantages in case of MIMO systems, in addition to improving the spectral efficiency like eta, whatever. Okay. Now ISI and interference from other users can also be reduced by utilizing the concept of beamforming, and you can also use smart antenna techniques in order to reduce the computational complexity of the receiver. So these are all some of the points that we had understood in the last class. Now, in this class, before I start, you can see some let's say reference textbooks if you are interested in understanding the complete concepts of MIMO communication. One is Gerard Fauchini. 1996. This Gerard Fauchini's pioneering work, layered space-time architecture for wireless communication in fading environments. That is one of his path-breaking inventions. And you can also look into Jay Winters. I think it's a 1987 classic, wherein he describes the capacity of a radio communication system with by employing diversity schemes over a relay fading environment. I think so. The capacity of radio communication systems he uses. And one of my favorites is Emre Telitar. This is 1995. Emre Telitar's Capacity of Multi-Antenna Gaussian Channels, AT&T Bell Lab Internal Technology Journal, or Memo, June 1995. This is Emre Telitar's one of the pioneering works is also a smaller world. That's one of the very nice inventions. And the same capacity of multi-antenna Gaussian channels is available in European Transactions on Telecommunications in 1999, the improved version of it that is available. So you can look into it in order to understand the complete idea of what is multiple antennas and how well exactly it behaves. So these are all some of the references for an interested reader. You can also take into account the other reference by Paul Raj, Paul Raj. Introduction to Space-Time Wireless Communication. Introduction to Space-Time Wireless Communications. Okay, these are all aside. Okay, now in this class we'll be discussing a narrow band MIMO model. How are you going to model this, and why we will go for a singular value decomposition? Before that, what is the rate, what is the diversity gain, what you are going to understand, how well you can manage the paths from source to destination in order to get a multiplexing gain or rate gain, whatever. Okay, both have slight variations, so I'll tell you how to get a diversity gain and rate gain. So we'll try to understand all those things in this class. Now first we will try to understand with a narrow band MIMO model. Narrow band MIMO model is nothing but you have at least two transmit antennas, transmit antenna 1 and transmit antenna 2. Similarly, you have at the receiver. So when you have more than one transmit antenna and one receive antenna, more than one transmit and receive antennas, then it will be decomposed into parallel substreams, as we had discussed in the last class. Like 0, 0 can be transmitted from transmit antenna 1, 1, 1 can be transmitted from transmit antenna 2, so on and so forth. Okay, a narrow band point-to-point communication system can be represented as an MT or NT, MT and MR receive antenna. That is MT transmit, MR receive antennas. But if you write like this, how do you represent mathematically? If you can write like this, you can represent mathematically as Y1, Y2, so on and so forth up to YMR, YMR, that is the received vector, NR cross 1 received vector. Okay, that is equal to, you have H11, H12, so on and so forth up to H1 empty. H1 empty. Similarly here, write the matrix HMR1, so on and so forth up to HMR empty. Y is equal to Hx plus N or Hs plus N. Now I will write it in terms of the symbols that are transmitted from source to destination as X1, X2, X3, so on and so forth up to XMT. Okay. Plus the AWGN noise N, that is N1, N2, N3, N4 up to how many? NMR. So what we have here is a simple implementation y is equal to Hx plus N. If you are using NR cross NT or MR cross NT, NR cross NT or MR cross MT approach, okay, y is equal to Hx plus N. If you use NT cross NR, then y is equal to XH plus N. So everything will change, the notations will change. So y is equal to Hx plus N. Here X is what? The empty dimensional transmitted symbol. And N is the MR dimensional noise vector. And H is what? MR cross MT or NR cross NT matrix or channel matrix with gains given as H11, H12 up to HMR empty. Okay. Now if I write Hij, is this? Hij is the gain from transmit antenna J to receive antenna I. That's how you have to read Tx Rx. Now there is one assumption. We have to assume the channel bandwidth. Okay, channel bandwidth, that is assume a channel bandwidth of B and complex Gaussian noise with zero mean and covariance matrix as sigma square into IMR. Okay. Now typically sigma square is what? Sigma square, if you talk about variance, that is, if you talk about this variance is nothing but expectation of noise element Ni square. Expectation of noise Ni square will give you N0 by 2. Same thing, this power spectral density of the channel noise, that is sigma square is represented as expectation of Ni square, that is equal to N0 by 2, that is the power spectral density of the channel noise. Next. Now transmit power constraint we have to assume in such a way that the equivalent low power, or you can call this as a narrowband noise model or transmit power constraint P, we will assume an equivalent model with noise power sigma square of unity and transmit power as P by sigma square is equal to rho. Rho is the average SNR, rho is the average SNR per receive antenna under unity channel gain. Okay. Now this power constraint implies that input symbol should satisfy the equation I is equal to 1 to MR or 1 to NR expectation of Xi into Xi conjugate. that is equal to rho. Average SNR per received antenna under the unity channel gain. So, or equivalently, you can write this as trace of Rx. Trace of Rx is also equal to rho, where trace of Rx is the trace of the input covariance matrix, where Rx in terms of trace of Rx, if you write trace of Rx, you can write that is equal to rho. The trace of Rx is the trace of the input covariance matrix. In the last class, we had seen what is Rx. How do you write the expectation of Rx? Okay. Now, if you write in terms of Rx, that is with respect to the XX Hermitian, because the complex symbols that has been radiated. So, Rx is equal to expectation of X into X Hermitian. That is also valid. See, all these things lead you to one common idea, that is y is equal to hx plus n, that you are writing it in terms of the received vector with the channel gain and the symbols that have been radiated, that is x, and the deviation of the symbol that happens because of the noise content, maybe because of n, or maybe because of the spatial correlation at the transmitter, or the spatial correlation induced in the channel medium itself. So whatever you have to understand the rho value, that is your signal to noise ratio. Now there are a lot of assumptions can be made about the knowledge of the channel gain matrix. One research that had evolved in 2001 was Upamanyu Madhav and Wistowski. Okay, Eugene Wistowski. Upamanyu Madhav and Eugene Wistowski. I think I may have written the spelling wrong, but this is one 2001 paper wherein he has developed a mathematical model in order to understand the behavior for a wiretap channel, for a wireless communication channel over slow and fast fading environments. What happens to the state of CSIT if there is a CSIT? If there is no CSIT, how the performance will vary? An information theoretic perspective has been given in this journal article. Now that's what different assumptions can be made about the knowledge of the H, that is the channel gain matrix at the transmitter as well as at the receiver. So CSIT, the channel state information availability at the transmitter, we know why CSIT is avoided even in case of our small single input, single output systems. We'll try to avoid this CSIT because getting a feedback now, what is happening at the transmitter and at the receiver. Now, receiver will have a channel state information availability, means it will have channel estimation over here and it will estimate the channel behavior over here at the receiver. Now, if you have a feedback path that will transmit piece of information at the what is happening at this channel, if it is available at the transmitter itself, then you have a lot of advantages. I don't deny it, but it is fairly complex. That is why for single input, single output systems, we tend to avoid this because of the computational complexity at both transmitter as well as the receiver. Now my point here is, what if I have both CSIT and CSIR? Now if I have CSIT and CSIR, it is as good as a system which is synchronized properly, and channel state information availability at the receiver will be utilized to effectively combine the signals at the receiver end and to obtain a very good performance. Now if you consider a case where channel varied according to means the signal varied according to the channel gains which are received at the receiver, and if you give it back to the transmitter, giving it as a closed loop feedback, and if you say that this is what is happening at the receiver, now for the second iteration, at least for the second iteration, before only you can find it out by using pilot symbols and taking this feedback from the pilot symbols, but at least from the second iteration, what happens is, if you don't have, if you have not performed a proper channel synchronization, at least from the second interval or at the second time instant, you will come to know the channel state information at the transmitter itself. Then there are a lot of advantages. One advantage is you can beamform or you can pre-coding can be done at the transmitter side itself. Now, for that to happen, you should have a CSIT. Now, once you have CSIT, you can beamform to a particular thing, and the power what you have going to receive, what you are going to receive at the receiver will form an array gain. That I'm not talking about the array gain and all. Now we will just reduce a study to what is happening with all these things. Okay. Now you can do beamforming. That is one kind of pre-coding technique that you are varying the phases of the transmitting symbol before transmission itself based on the channel state information availability. Now this is a little complicated, but in case of massive MIMO systems and the systems which operate at higher data rates, would go with both CSIT as well as with CSIR. Okay, and then the second case would be availability of CSIR and no availability of CSIT. This this is a low complexity system that can be designed based on the approach that you can go with a diversity gain in order to produce diversity improvement. Okay, the diversity gain, if you have a diversity gain and if you don't have a complex multiplexing gain or the rate gain, what happens is you will follow the Alamotti procedure. Now, in case of Alamotti, you don't get an array gain. Even in case of 2x1 or 2x2, you don't get an array gain, but you will have 2 degrees of freedom. That's why you will get the diversity gain. Now, if you have CSIR and simply you can argue in terms of 1 cross MRRC, I will go with 1 cross MRC. No, it is not possible, because if you go with 1 cross MRRC, what happens is if you don't have a 2 cross 2 or a 2 cross NR matrix, then it is impossible for you to go for a multi-user kind of stuff. Multi-user application cannot be supported with 1 cross MRRC systems, so that you will avoid that 1 cross MRRC. Instead, you will maintain the same diversity gain and you will try to transmit with the available CSIR, and you will employ at least Alamotti scheme in order to obtain that diversity gain. That is the crux. And third one is you have a CSIT and you don't have a CSIR. You don't have CSIR. This is also one difficult case. What happens in case of this is transmit pre-coding can be done at the CSIR or CSIT. But if you don't have a proper CSIR, you should have some relay kind of architecture here itself before it reaches the receiver, and the relay node should contact your transmitter so that what is happening at the relay, will be communicated to your transmitter, and you assume that as your the transmit side information. That is, there are a lot of assumptions that can be done, but this is one of the feedback path availability. And CSIR from the receiver can be sent back to the transmitter to provide CSIT. CSIT may also be available in bidirectional systems without feedback path, and the reciprocal properties or the inverse properties if they satisfy. So these are all some of the assumptions. These are all the realistic scenarios based on the application you are going to do, or you are going to design a system in such a way that you will utilize all those things in a better way. So I have exhaustively discussed that optimal decoding procedure, so we will not touch upon it, but I am going to introduce you to the basic study of what are the 3 different cases of MIMO transmit diversity scheme you have, and how do you explain it, how do you write it. And you can, I think this is very important, you can look into Yuan 2007, C. Yuan et al. C. Yuan et al. 2007, from his paper. It is pretty, very much easily you can understand that how exactly different cases of MIMO transmit diversity can be achieved and what are all those things. Okay. And this is one very good paper for the beginner to understand the concepts. Okay. And first thing, as I told Yuan, this is Yuan et al. As I think that is Yuan quasi-orthogonal spacetime. I think it is quasi-orthogonal spacetime code design, I think. Okay, that is available from Imperial College London Press book. Okay, fine, whatever. Now, what are the 3 different cases of MIMO transmit diversity schemes we will come across? MIMO transmit diversity techniques. Okay. First one is closed loop MIMO system. Closed loop MIMO system. Second one is open loop MIMO system. Third important aspect is blind MIMO. Blind MIMO. Now you have to understand all these things with practical implications. And first thing first, why MIMO? Why MIMO? Because in SISO systems, data rate cannot be increased because it follows from the fact that either by increasing the transmission bandwidth or power, both are not unlimited, both are limited, both you have constraint, both in case of bandwidth and power. If you see the Shannon's channel capacity formula, that is bandwidth into log 2 1 plus SNR, okay, the frequency spectrum is valuable resource. Sometimes it is restricted to use as and when you or where, however you want. So increasing transmission bandwidth is not a fair amount of acceptable solution for increasing the data rate. Now, just observe what I'm explaining, just try to concentrate. Increasing the transmission bandwidth, increasing transmission bandwidth is not acceptable by simply increasing whatever you have from a single input, single output system. So now the next point is, in order to increase the data rate, you cannot go for an infinite bandwidth system, that is ruled out. Increase in transmission power, that is also limited. That is also, we have a restriction on that. So increase in transmission power is also not a proper solution for the increase in data rate. So in order to have, because what happens now, you know all these things, but you should understand why we are going for that MIMO communication system. Now, because the radio frequency amplifiers are too costly, so now once if you start transmitting with disturbed power or unequal amount of power that you are going to radiate from a single input, single output system, your receiver will die because of it is battery operated. So battery life of the mobile unit or the receiver unit will go for a toss if you are using unnecessary. See, that is why you might have experienced if you go for see somewhere in the train, if you travel for about 100 kilometers or 200 kilometers, even for that matter, if you go inside any ghat section or something like that, automatically the battery will drain out quickly. That is because of the same fact that automatically your mobile station will be on lock, or it is locked to your base station. When the power variation happens, automatically it has to communicate to the nearest possible base station throughout. Now, in order to avoid that, what you have, if you are sitting at your room or in college or whatever, where you get higher signal strength, the drain, if you observe your mobile, the pattern, how exactly it drains, automatically you can see if you are moving out of the equal power sharing zone. So that is what I mean. If you are traveling somewhere, unequal power distribution happens because sometimes somewhere you may get the signal, sometimes somewhere you may not get the signal because of the signal drop. Now, your mobile device is automatically connected through a low frequency feedback channel, and that's why it will start to search the signal strength every now and then, every 3 seconds or every 4, it depends. Okay. Now, that is why power goes low or the battery will drain out quickly. Now you have understood now why it is required. Pilot signals are sent in order to understand the behavior of the signal strength at the mobile, or vice versa is also true. Now, in case of a closed loop MIMO system, what happens? Just try to observe here. Feedback of channel gain and phase from the receiver has to be understood. Remember this, in closed loop MIMO systems, feedback of the channel gain, I will not write because it will take a lot of time. Feedback, okay, in closed loop MIMO system, feedback of the channel gain, that is H, and the phase information pertaining to the symbol that has been radiated from the transmitter, okay, which is available at the receiver. Phase from the receiver is given back to the transmitter, You understood this, okay? H you have understood, that is the channel gain, and the phase from the receiver is given to the transmitter. Hence, channel state information is available at both ends. Channel state information is available at both ends. So what happens? CSI, the CSI instantaneous channel and statistical average of the channel, distribution of the channel. So if you have CSIT and CSIR availability, there also you will try to reduce the effect by instantiating the completeness of the synchronization by transmitting information from channel state information from the receiver, that is the channel gains and phase from the receiver to the transmitter every second, or based on certain instance statistical average based on the channel variation. So that has an enormous amount of improvement because everything is known and the synchronization is achieved. So you can go ahead with system, but more or less this kind of system is complicated. So the next comes is your open loop MIMO communication system. In open loop MIMO communication system, now you just imagine MRRC, how channel estimation happens at the MRRC. The receiver estimates the channel using the pilot signals, but no feedback is given to the transmitter. No feedback is given to the transmitter. In open loop MIMO, that is one of the important aspects. In open loop MIMO, I will repeat, at the receiver, imagine your MRRC scheme or whatever, okay? At the receiver estimates the channel using the pilot symbols that have been radiated, but no feedback given to the transmitter. So instantaneous CSI at the transmitter is not available in open loop MIMO systems. Instantaneous channel state information is not available at the transmitter. Now with that, but it is fair enough. No, it is fairly possible to obtain CSI at the receiver by sending some signals, so that based on the signals training pulse sequence or separate pilot signals, you can always estimate some concepts of how exactly it has happened, but pre-coding and beamforming you have to forget. And the last aspect is blind MIMO. In blind MIMO system, you can pretty sure that from blind MIMO, it is blind means no channel state information available at both the ends, both at CSI, at transmitter or at the receiver. So while sending the pilot signals or pilot symbols which you are going to transmit, pilot symbols is nothing but if you have a transmitter over here and a receiver over here, you will send some known sequence of zeros and ones. Let's say you have 0011, 0011, and known sequence of symbols that will be transmitted. And a priori information is available at both transmitter and as well as at the receiver. So transmitter will send some piece of information to the receiver saying that this is what the information I'm going to transmit, and if you have only channel state information availability, by employing the diversity, open loop MIMO systems can be implemented with the help of whatever you have at the receiver. That is the concept. Okay, and more often than not, for NT transmit antenna or MT transmit antenna, optimal pilot symbol comprises of NT mutually orthogonal signals, isn't it so? Now you have all these mutually orthogonal symbols. That's why you are going to have something like S1, S2 and minus S2 conjugate and S1 conjugate, as you have done in case of your Alamotti scheme. So mutually orthogonal signals with equal power. So that is easier for my receiver to detect. Now my Alamotti scheme is no channel state information availability at the transmitter. So still I am having something like lesser 3 dB, lesser transmit power, but I am losing at 3 dB. That is fine, but at the same time, the receiver computational complexity is at the transmitter I am reducing with the help of channel state information availability at the receiver. So this is the crux of what MIMO transmit diversity schemes does in our communication systems. And the next important aspect is the rate gain. Usually this rate gain is defined for a parallel MIMO channel. Means all these are something like multiplexed for parallel MIMO channels. Now for this parallel MIMO channels, in the sense, I'll write what is that parallel MIMO channel in the sense. Okay. Now before that, look at this. I have, say something like I have a transmitter source. Let's say all these things are connected to my transmitter source. Let's consider BPSK only 0, 1, and you can transmit one more 0 or one more 1 or 0, something like this. Let's consider this as a transmitter, and you have, let's say, 4 antennas. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 4 independent signal paths. You have at the same time at least more than 2 receive antennas should be there. For the ease of analysis, I'll consider all the 4 antennas over here at the receiver. Now you will receive something 0, 1, 1, 0, something like this. Okay, let's assume. Now what is this? This is nothing but your spatial multiplexing scheme. Spatial multiplexing scheme with 4x4 transmit antenna. A simplified thing. Okay. So this rate gain of this 4x4 MIMO system can be defined as what is the number of path that it is transmitting from source to a allocated receiver. In other words, if I want to define the rate gain, it has to be defined for at least 2 or more transmit antennas and 2 or more receive antennas. Means for parallel MIMO channels, there is at most minimum of MR comma MT or NR comma NT. Minimum of NR comma NT or MR comma MT. Anyone? Okay. So minimum, there is the at most minimum of MR comma NT, the rate gain from that of a SISO, single input, single output system. What does it mean? It means it is saying multiplexing gain. In spatial multiplexing MIMO system, different data are sent through parallel channels. Okay, with the help of a serial to parallel conversion, whatever you have studied. Okay, it is highly simplified model, what I've written. Okay, it gives definitely higher transmission rate. Now, if you consider this as one single input, single output, this as another single input, single output, this as another single input, single output, this as another single input, single output, combine, and if you are using a single switch at T1, you have 4 bits of information. That is why parallel streaming is happening. So minimum of NRNT rate gain from that of a SISO system. So I will again define what is the equation for the rate gain. Now just try to understand. You should have a line of sight path exists between transmitter to the receiver, and let's assume this is the dominant signal or a major lobe signal available at the receiver. We will come back to the case study a little later. Now diversity gain, if I want to define the diversity gain, now what are the maximum number of independent paths traveled by each signal? So in this case 4x4, let me write another figure. Let me write another simple figure so that you will understand. Okay. If you let's talk about a 2x2 only. 2x2 system. Okay. Now if I want to write this, how do I write? I have a dominant LOS path and I have a scattered path, and I have a dominant LOS path and I have a scattered path. Now this pertains to diversity gain of a 2x2 MIMO system. Serial to parallel conversion, parallel to serial conversion. So what happens here is the diversity gain, the maximum number of independent paths traveled by each signal. At most, what is that? MR cross MT or NR cross MT. Now with this, it is highly possible that not all the paths are highly faded, isn't it so? Now that is what we have studied in our diversity schemes. Same data is sent through all multiple antennas. That you have to remember. If you send 0 only, or if you're sending it in terms of 2 time slots, you will lose 3 dB performance, DER versus SNR, and then you can still have the diversity gain, that is through Alamoti. Same piece of information in the previous diversity schemes, what we have assumed in case of 2x1 MISO systems, same piece of information has been transmitted, but at the receiver, if you have only one receiver, 0, 0, whichever is larger, I will receive that. In that way, if some of the paths are completely lost because of the fading effect, some paths will be still working. So the receiver tries to make an efficient use of this to decode the data accurately, and it improves what? It improves what? Reliability. Link reliability. So maximum data rate for a 4x4 MIMO system and diversity gain for a 2x2 MIMO system can be represented in these fashions. So the rate gain, see, there has to be a trade-off. Whatever you do, whether you want a multiplexing gain or whether you want a diversity gain, it is up to you. But the thing is, diversity multiplexing trade-off is there in MIMO communication system between these two fundamental gains like diversity and rate gains. So there is a term which defined in some of the books called diversity multiplexing trade-off. I don't know whether it is there in Andrea Goldsmith. It has to be there somewhere. Okay, diversity and multiplexing trade-off. In fact, you can define that as the diversity and rate gains, the popularly known as diversity multiplexing trade-off between the fundamental gains, that is rate gain and diversity gain. Now, how do you define that? How do you define that? And next question in our mind arises is, if I have a 2x2 MIMO system, what could be my best spectral efficiency? What could be, from spectral efficiency you can derive data rate. That's not our idea. What is the spectral efficiency? Approximate data rate you can obtain based on the bandwidth or based on the channel usage or whatever. Now, what next is it something like spectrally efficient? If it is spectrally efficient, what is the rate gain and what is the diversity gain? And if you satisfy all these things, is the transmitter and receiver uses CSI at both ends or at one end or whatever, and is it energy efficient? Is it energy efficient? That is the big picture. So generally books define the rate gain as what is the data rate of transmission. That is the rate gain. Means what is the exact relationship? Note that mathematically, if you want to define that rate gain, if you want to define R, I will take that is equal to limit SNR from 0 tends to infinity. I will write as capital R of SNR divided by log 2 of SNR. That is my rate gain. What is that? See, a transmission scheme is said to achieve that multiplexing gain of this small r if the data rate bits per unit hertz or bits per second per hertz are, okay, that is R SNR, which is a function of log 2 SNR. Log 2 SNR is the bit. Okay. Now, if you want to define this transmission scheme, a MIMO transmission scheme is said to achieve the multiplexing gain small r, okay, if the data rate per unit hertz r, R SNR, which is a function of SNR, R by log 2 SNR. So what does it mean? What does it mean? Multiplexing gain is given by the slope of the data rate for a fixed bit error rate or a fixed frame error rate or for a fixed symbol error rate. Now, how are you going to plot? Plot it in terms of SNR over a linear log scale. That's it. Multiplexing gain is given by the slope of the data rate for fixed frame error rate or for fixed data rate or for fixed symbol error rate, plotted as a function of signal to noise ratio in a linear log scale. Now the diversity gain, if you talk about the diversity gain, the diversity gain is associated with the probability of error. Diversity gain, because whenever you talk about diversity gain, you know what is missing from the transmitter. So if something is missing, you will lose out on something. What is that something you will lose out? 3 dB performance with respect to what? SNR and BER. So BER and SNR, I'm not talking about any outage here, probability of outage or something like that, but I'm just talking about in terms of error. What is the probability of error in detection? What is the exact relationship between the probability of error, the symbols that have been transmitted over the log 2 of SNR. So diversity gain. Now remember this diversity gain, you have a exponential decay. So the slope is negative. So D is written as D is equal to minus of limit SNR tends to infinity. SNR tends to infinity. What is first thing? What is the bit error rate? That is log 2 of information, that is the probability of error, and SNR divided by the whole log 2 SNR. This is how you define the diversity gain. The probability of error P SNR as a function of SNR satisfies this. D equal to minus limit SNR tends to infinity. You can have a diversity gain. And next important aspect combining these two things is what is the maximum diversity gain that you are going to obtain. That is called as the what do you call that, as the optimal diversity gain, or you can also call that as the supreme diversity gain. Optimal diversity gain or optimal or supreme diversity gain. Now this is defined as for a fixed transmission rate. Now if you have 1 cross 1, you have a different supreme diversity gain. If you have a 2 cross 2, if you have a 3 cross 3, everything is different. So optimal diversity, that is I will call it as D opt, or that is equal to D sup. Since this SUP is used somewhere in case of our spatial multiplexing systems with the vertical blast and diagonal blast, this is not generally used in the textbooks. D optimal has been used. It is also called the supreme diversity, one and the same. Okay. That okay. What is that? D opt. D opt can be written as NT or MT minus small r into NR minus small r for all the values of r lies between 0 and minimum of NTNR. Okay, what does it mean? The optimal diversity gain D opt that can be accomplished by any 2 cross 2, 3 cross 3 MIMO system like this. If the feed the length that is greater than NT plus NR minus 1, and the optimal diversity gain can be calculated by using D optimum, that is NT minus R into NR minus R. The maximum value of rate gain R is always minimum of NT comma NR, since we have that parallel streams. Now, what does it mean? What does this equation says? NT minus R. R we know limit SNR tends to infinity, R of SNR by log 2 SNR. From that, I can calculate what is small r. Then what do you mean by the supreme optimum maximum diversity? What it can produce? How can you understand from this? You cannot understand anything from this. Suppose if you have a rate gain of 1, what does it have to do with diversity gain? Now, these three equations, this equation as well as these three, diversity gain and rate gain, will give you a designer physical layer design perspective of how you can optimally design a system by considering all these facts into consideration. Now, let me give you a simple example, and we will try to understand the same concept better. Okay. First, we will take a simple example like, assume that multiplexing gain, that is multiplexing gain, rate gain R, and diversity gain D satisfies this diversity multiplexing trade-off equation. Now we will assume that R and D satisfies this D optimal equation for SNR tends to infinity. Now I have, let's say I will take something like assume NT is equal to 7. And NR is also equal to 7. Okay. Now this is a 7 cross 7 MIMO system. 7 cross 7 MIMO system. Okay. Fine. With a SNR, I will take SNR is equal to, let's say, 10 dB. I will choose SNR is equal to 10 dB. Okay. Now what I say is, I have this configuration. what is the approximate spectral efficiency that I can produce from this? Let's say this is also given by the designer. Let's say he wants something like 16 bits per second per hertz, bits per second per hertz, okay, or BPCU. Okay. Now what he has given, rate gain and diversity gain follows this equation, means it satisfies this equation d supremum nt minus r into nr minus r for r lies between 0 and minimum of nt comma nr. He has a system that is nt equal to nr is equal to 7 cross 7 MIMO system which operates at a 10 dB SNR and which gives a spectral efficiency, that is spectral efficiency eta of 16 BPCU or 16 bits per second per hertz. He will ask you to find out what is the supreme diversity or what is the optimal diversity. So this is find the optimal diversity gain such that the given MIMO system can achieve. Now you have to understand this question. First, rate and diversity gain follows this equation, means you can always find the optimum. He has a 7 cross 7 system. It operates at an SNR of 10 dB, which has a spectral efficiency of 16 BPCU. What is the diversity gain that it achieves? That's what he wants. Now look at this. In order to solve this problem, you need to first find out what is happening with the single input, single output channel, and then you can improve upon it. Now, you have something like parallel Gaussian channels, like R log 2 SNR, with SNR is equal to 10 dB and R is equal to, capital R is equal to, let's say 16, that is your eta is 16 BPS, okay. I can call this as, some textbook call this as R also, okay, spectral efficiency eta, okay. Now we require what? If you follow this, rate gain should be equal to log 2 SNR is equal to R, means I will write this as R of log 2 SNR should be equal to my spectral efficiency. Should be equal to my spectral efficiency. What does it mean? I mean R log 2 SNR. SNR is 10 dB, 10 to the power of 1.0. That is 10 R log 2 into 10 to the power of 1.0. That is equal to 16. R log 2 10 to the power of 1.0. That is equal to 16. 10 to the power 1.0, that is equal to 16. So what is my R? R is equal to, say, somewhere around 4.816. Now, what does it mean? It means minimum of 5 antennas. Look at this. You have 7 antennas, 7 transmit, 7 receive. R is equal to 4.816 is the rate gain that you are talking about. 5 antennas may be used to achieve multiplexing gain. Okay. Now, with this 4.86, even if you have 4.1 or something like that, you cannot have four antennas transmitting a gain of 4.1. So you have to choose greater number of antennas in order to obtain that fractional BPCU or fractional rate. Are you all with me? Now here what is happening is rate gain, whatever you have obtained is 4.816. Therefore, 5 antennas may be used for multiplexing gain. So how much is my NT? NT is equal to 7. So in order to obtain the multiplexing gain, what do I have to do? In order to obtain this multiplexing gain, NT minus 2, that is 7 minus 2. 7 minus 2 is equal to 5 antennas. 5 antennas I have to fix in order to obtain that multiplexing gain. So what is the maximum diversity gain that can be calculated? NT minus 2 into NR minus 2. That is NT. What is R? What is that R? 7 minus 2 I have. So in order to obtain that diversity gain, so the remaining 2 antennas, okay, the remaining 2 antennas I have to utilize in such a way that I will obtain the diversity path. So the small r is 4.816. The small r is 4.816 minus this small r, 5 antennas. 5 antennas I need to instantiate. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 antennas. Here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 antennas. I will use it for multiplexing gain. I will use it for multiplexing gain. What is the rest antennas? Rest antennas are, I will write it in dotted line. 2 antennas have been left out with. So here no doubt LOS you will have, but this also you will have. This you will have, LOS you will have. So 7 minus 5. 7 minus 5 into 7 minus 5. If you do 7 minus 5 into 7 minus 5, if you do, it is 2 into 2, 4. 4 paths have been dedicated for D-opt, that is supreme diversity. NT minus R into NR minus R. We are sending data over 5 parallel data streams only, and we are utilizing 4 paths. 4 paths are links for improving the reliability, or you can also term in terms of reliability. So you can have rate gain of 2 with a diversity gain of, let's say, you can achieve up to 25 if you have a rate gain for a 7 cross 7 system. If you have a rate gain of 6, you will have a diversity gain of only 1. So if you have a rate gain of 5, you will have a diversity, optimal diversity gain of 4, so on and so forth. From that equation, you can calculate everything. So this rate gain and diversity gain are the important aspects, so that first you have to calculate the rate gain. From the rate gain, the remaining can be used to, the remaining antennas are substituted in order to have that optimal diversity. Suppose if you have complete rate gain, let's say R is equal to, you need, let's say R, you got it as something like 6.15, 6.15. What does it mean? You don't have any diversity gain. Diversity gain is equal to 1. That is the minimum diversity gain. That is what I talk about. Okay. If you have a 6 rate gain of 6 R, means completely multiplexing gain has been utilized in your system design, but you don't have any diversity gain. This is the physical interpretation of how the MIMO communication systems have been employed in order to obtain that maximum diversity gain. So this is one way of discussing the fact of MIMO with respect to diversity gain and what do you call that as a multiplexing gain. Okay. Another important aspect is parallel decomposition of the channel. Parallel decomposition.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
In the previous example, if we get your small r after calculation, we get a value like 6.15, like you just said. So we have to round up and we'll get 7 then.
Yeah, you will get 7. Then what does it mean? You have 7. All the 7 antennas are you are employing for that, and you will have that probability of error is equal to 0. And you can say that the diversity gain is 0, but the diversity gain may happen because of the line of path which has instantiated at the last one or at the any one antennas. So even if you have 6.1, you have to decide it in terms of the multiplexing gain. You can argue it in terms of diversity gain as 0. It won't happen in a realistic sense. No, at least one path, at least one function will have a diversity. One extra multipath you will have. Okay. So you can argue that D is equal to 0. You have to say that D is equal to 0. You cannot preferably say, because D, whatever you are going to design, that can be designed only in terms of probability of error. Somewhere down the line, the reliability of the link will improve. So now for a lower SNR, yes, you can take the diversity as 0. But for higher SNRs, diversity will always be at least 1. Okay, at least 1.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Higher SNR in the term, higher SNR you can calculate it in terms of more than anything more than 16 dB. Okay. So we'll take a break for 2 minutes. Okay, I'll rejoin once again. I'll rejoin once again. Just we'll take 2 minutes break and I'll come back. Okay, fine. Now we'll start with the parallel decomposition of the MIMO channel. Now, parallel decomposition is nothing but, am I audible? I think I'm audible. Let's see. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, parallel decomposition is nothing but you have a performance gain called multiplexing gain you have obtained, so that H can be separated out, or the channel can be separated out. The channel, if you have parallel data streams, the channel, the multiplexing independent data onto the independent channels we have. So you have increasing in the spectral efficiency, that is the how many number of paths you have, such kind of multiplexing gain you will get. If you're not concentrating on any diversity gain, obviously you will have multiplexing gain. Let's say R parallel channels, if you have R-fold increase in the data rate is possible in comparison to single input, single output system. So this data rate increases is the gain of the complete system. Now, if you write it in terms of a MIMO channel, that is NR cross NT or MR cross MT matrix channel gain with H, and that is known to CSI y is equal to Hx plus n, I will write, or Hs plus n, I will write. Now I have a NR cross NT matrix, I have NR cross NT matrix, I have, and with NR cross NT matrix, if I have the channel gains H, the channel gains H, let's assume it as CSIT as well as CSIR. Okay. Now, if you have CSIT and CSIR, that is the most complicated system. But with this, what are we going to achieve? With this, what exactly we want? Now, if you have something like what I have discussed, something like 2 cross 2, let's say 1 plus I, 1 minus I, and you have minus 1 plus I and minus 1 minus I. Suppose if you have this, what I expect at the receiver is the maximum rank of the matrix. Maximum rank of the matrix should be equal to 2. It cannot be less than 2. It cannot be less than 2. If you have less than 2, there are a lot of implications in our system. There are a lot of implications in that system, means because of fading scenario. Now let's say my system can be represented as H is equal to 1 plus I, 1 minus I, and I'll have again 1 plus I and 1 minus I. If I write something like this, any one row can be represented in terms of the other row. So what happens? R becomes equal to 1. Or if this is 0, let's say that is the best possible option. Let's say we cannot write 0 directly, but because of the fading, because of the destructive interference, I have got only one channel. I had given you a MIMO pinhole or a keyhole MIMO matrix, but I have not explained in reality. Now I will try to explain what is that. Now H is 1 plus I and 1 minus I, 0, 0 you have, means what? Rank becomes equal to 1. What does it mean? It means for the second receiver, second receiver has an enormous amount of fading, So how do you understand this? This can be understood only by decomposing the channel into many number of streams, like parallel decomposition of the channel, something like this, or a singular value decomposition of the channel. So singular value decomposition I cannot teach you in this class. I had made a separate video while I was teaching linear algebra. I'll share it with you. But the geometrical interpretation of singular value decomposition I will show you in this class only. But the complete singular value decomposition may not be possible for us to cover here. So the idea I will cover. So why it is required? The complete singular value decomposition I had done in other subject actually, with respect to a communication perspective only. So I'll share it with you. You can look into it in order to understand singular value decomposition. Okay, now what were we discussing? Yes, yeah, we were discussing the fact that R is equal to, so it has reduced from 2 to 1. So the rank of H has been dropped. When you say the rank of the H is dropped for any matrix H, so we can understand that this system becomes a useless system. So if you have RH is equal to 2 or R is equal to 2, maximum rank is equal to 2, then the system is performing normally. The system is giving some result. Okay. So RH denote the rank of H for any matrix H. So we can obtain its singular value decomposition for the H. H can be written as H is equal to U sigma V Hermitian. U sigma V Hermitian, the singular value decomposed, that is H can be written as U sigma V Hermitian. I'll tell you what are these things. Now, first is U. U is an NR cross NR or MR cross MR matrix. And the V matrix is the MT cross or NT cross NT matrix. Both U and V are unitary matrices, and where the sigma is MR cross MT diagonal matrix of singular values. So why do you need to find out all these things? You can find out with this, you can use the beamforming. Okay. So the singular values like sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3, so on and so forth here. So it will give you whether now if you are arranging this in the increasing order, let's say this value as 1.2 and this as 0.6 and this as 0.0001 or something like that, this has a diminishing gain. Means You are finding out the behavior of the channel by using the singular values of H. These singular values have the property sigma 1 is equal to square root of lambda I. What is this? Lambda I? Eigenvalue. Can anyone tell me what is an eigenvalue? Eigenvector? Eigenvalue. Eigenvalue of a matrix. Eigenvector. What do you mean by eigenvalue and eigenvector? Anyone? Please tell me. Hey, eigenvalue. You studied eigenvalue. What is an eigenvalue? What is the implication of an eigenvalue in linear algebra? You will simply write Ax is equal to lambda x and you will find out something. If you have A, determinant of A minus lambda is equal to 0. What is that eigenvalue? What do eigenvalues mean? It's a scalar associated with linear system, isn't it? Linear equation, system of linear equation, linear system of equations. If you have eigenvalues are special set of scalars. Are the characteristics root, characteristic value. Okay. So with the eigenvalue approach, you will find out the largest eigenvalue of a channel by using the eigenvalue of H Hermitian, and rank of these singular columns are arranged in this fashion, in one fashion like ascending or descending. Usually it is arranged in the descending order like 1.2, 0.6 and so on and so forth. Now it follows that if you write like that, the rank of H is less than equal to minimum of MT, MR. If H is full rank, which is referred to as what? Rich scattering environment, then RH is equal to minimum of MT, MR or NT, NR. Okay, so if you don't have a rich scattering environment, or if H is not full rank, then you may have like low rank matrix, low rank H. There are diminishing gains of the eigenvalues, and sigmas, which are written as the singular values, may diminish to 0 also. From that you can find out both the multiplexing gain as well as the diversity gain. So, okay. Now that is why see, if you parallelly decompose the channel, you can understand what is the degree of correlation also, isn't it so? If you completely understand 1.2 or something like that, and if this is also 0.6 and if this becomes 0.6, what happens? There is a spatial correlation between these two channels, and these 0.6 can be represented as 1.2 by addition or by subtraction by summing something. Now with a scaling factor, you can represent it as another 0, so H becomes a low rank. Now if H is a low rank, performance reduces. If H is not a full rank, full rank matrix. If H is not a full rank matrix, then what happens is this will have a diminishing gain and the performance will deteriorate. Now we'll go back to 6th class where I had defined you something like a pinhole or a keyhole. Usually I'll write it as a keyhole channel model or something like that. So keyhole channel model, if you are writing it in terms of a keyhole channel model, how are you going to represent that keyhole condition, the uncorrelated keyhole condition? Before that, let me try to explain if this happens, if this H is a low rank performance, not only that performance reduces, there is one more point actually. Low rank H gives you an indication to the degree of correlation in terms of channel, and in terms of if you have CSIT and CSIR, you can also write it in terms of whether this channel state information availability at the transmitter, because of the transmit coding or transmit correlation, or because of the channel correlation, you have a diminishing gain because you have lost some of the rows, or the H is not full rank. So parallel decomposition of the channel is obtained by by defining a transformation on the channel input and output via some pre-coding and receiver shaping. This is very important. Okay, very important. How do you obtain the parallel decomposition of the channel? That is through transmit, pre-coding, and at the receiver, receive shaping. Okay, receive shaping. Okay, now pre-coding at the input X to the antennas is generated by some linear transformation on the input vector. Usually it is represented as X tilde or S tilde. That can be represented as X is equal to V into X tilde. Okay, X is represented as V into X tilde. Receiver shaping performs a similar operation at the receiver by pre-multiplying or by multiplying the channel output by U Hermitian. I'll tell you what are all these things. Okay, why we need to go with this with a geometrical interpretation, then you will understand. Before that, we will go to a pinhole or a keyhole MIMO channel, and then we will come back to this. Okay, first, now you have understood the concept of transmitter. Okay, with let's say 3 antennas. Now you have a screen. Let's say you have a screen over here. Let's assume this as a tunnel. Oh, sorry. Let's assume this as a tunnel, and your mobile enters this, and what happens here is there's a keyhole. Now what is happening? This is coming over here, this is coming over here, and this is coming over here. Now here it has been merged, and we can write actually. We can write receiver. Now here what is happening? This is the real-time implementation of this. What is happening? So scattered beam will go to this, and to this. So what is happening at this junction, you analyze? Only one path is available. Only one can go. One signal can go. If you transmit like 0, 1, 1 at the same time, here it will be 0, 1, 1. What happens here? 0 will first go, or sorry, 0, 1, 1 it will go. Now 0, 1, 1 can go here, 0, 1, 1 can go here, but time slots are different, right? That is what is happening. This scenario is similar to multi-input single output system cascaded with a SIMO system. Okay. Now it minimizes the degree of freedom. So this is also called as a reduction rank channel. Reduced rank channel scenario. Okay. Now if your mobile enters the tunnel, what happens at the, let's say at the beginning of the tunnel you have 3x3 MIMO, let's say. At the end of the tunnel you have 3x3. Inside the tunnel there are a lot of curvatures, so you cannot have a repeater or a regenerative repeater or a relay node or amplify forward or decode. Nothing will happen, so you lose the signal strength. So automatically it drops down to one single channel. So in order to explain this, we will consider a signal. One second. X is equal to, I will write it as x1, x2, x3. Okay. x1, x2, x3 are the signals transmitted from the first, second, and third antennas. First antenna, second antenna, third antenna. Now, what is that? Y is equal to hx. We will see y is equal to h left x. That is equal to what? h1, h2, h3. Look at this figure. h1, h2, h3, correct? h1, h2, h3 you have, and you multiply that with x1, x2, x3, correct? Now what is happening here? h1, h2 and h3 are the channel coefficients. And the left side of your tunnel or keyhole or the screen or whatever are the transmitted signal. So what happens? The signal at the other side of the keyhole is given by, at the other side is given by what? Y1, let's say. I'll call this as Y1 is the keyhole function. I'll write it as alpha into Y. Alpha is the keyhole. It is the PA or KA, pinhole attenuation. Pinhole attenuation or keyhole attenuation. Okay, keyhole attenuation. What happens in case of this? The received signal vector, if you want to write, it will be something like R is equal to H right into Y1, that is equal to alpha H right into H left into X, that is equal to what? You will write it in terms of, let's say, alpha into H4, H5, H6 I will write, okay, and then H1, H2, H3 I will write here, and X1, X2, X3 I will write, X1, X2, X3 I will write, okay. Alpha I have, H right I have, H left I have, X I have. Now what is happening here? That is equal to alpha into, if you multiply, some term will come H4, H1, H4, H2, H4, H3, something like H5, H1, so on and so forth. Okay, H5 will come here, H6 will come here. Okay, into X1, X2, X3. Correct? Huh? That is nothing but Hx, isn't it, sir? Where H right is the channel matrix describing the propagation on the right hand side of the keyhole channel H4, H5, H6. Okay, the H4, H5, H6 are the coefficients or the channel gains corresponding to the first, second, third antennas respectively. So equivalently, what do you write? Equivalently, alpha into something like H4, H1, the same one, H4, H1, H4, H2, H4, H3 you will write. Similarly, H5, H1, H5, H2, H5, H3 you will write. H6, H1, something like that you will write. Okay. Now what is this? The rank of this channel matrix is simply the first row or the second row or the third row, because the rank of a matrix is the number of linearly independent rows or columns of the matrix, isn't it? So in the above matrix, we can obtain the second and third rows from the first row by multiplying a constant factor. So similarly, second row you can obtain by using the first and the third. Similarly, third row you can obtain. So rank of this kind of matrix is equal to 1. When you have rank of this matrix is equal to 1, what does it mean? You have a performance which is deteriorated. So hence we have the rank of this matrix is equal to 1. Hence the performance is deteriorated. You can argue, like you can say, by looking at this scenario itself, you can say the rank will drop. But you don't know when exactly it will drop and how much amount of rank drop will happen. Now for a special case 3x3 I have written, you can say, okay, it will drop down to 1. But if you have a 2x2 or a 4x4 system, rank may drop down to 1 or 2 based on what kind of a keyhole you have over here. For a simple scenario, rank will drop to 1 because you have only one aperture, one exit point. So you can argue in terms of rank will become 1. Now you have understood this. Now the diversity gain, there will be some kind of diversity gain that can be obtained from this, but not the multiplexing gain. Okay. So reliability, performance will deteriorate, but the thing with the probability of error and SNR is for a particular value of the spectral efficiency, for a particular value of eta, defining the SNR, defining the probability of error, the performance of the system is deteriorated or a degraded system. Degraded system. The system itself is a system which will give you a lesser performance or lesser data rate or lesser spectral efficiency or whatever in terms of gain. If you want to write, you can write. So this is one way of looking at this situation. Now come back to our singular value decomposition. Now you have understood so many aspects here, but I want you to concentrate more on what exactly happens if you use how do I write? I will write with a, I'll take a vector x, okay? I'll take a vector x, okay? That is 1, 3. I'll take a vector x, 1, 3. I'll take a matrix A. Instead of H, I will take A, okay? You can take H only, okay? But just to understand this, I am writing it as a matrix. That is, let's say 2, 1, minus 1 and 1 I have taken. Now, construct a vector, construct, you can write it as H also, not a problem. Because everything boils down to one conclusion, that is our singular value decomposition, why and how exactly it has happened. Construct a vector y given by a is equal to x, a into x. So you have to include a into x and construct a vector y. So what happens? I'll write dot only instead of writing arrows. It's also a vector, but a bold dot you have to write if you are writing like that in this term. Okay, y is equal to ax, that is 2, 1, minus 1, 1 into x, that is 1, 3. What happens? 5, 2. Okay. Now what is happening here? Observe this very carefully. Observe this very carefully here. This is my x-axis, this is my y-axis. Now what was the first point? Let's say this is 0. This is this point, this point, and this point, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, fine. What was the first point? Like, what was the first point? 1, 3. 1, 3. Correct? 1, 3. Now vector x is rotated, and what happened? If you are rotating the vector x, you will get another vector somewhere here. Rotated by what amount? What amount? Amount is this, a or h or whatever. Now what happened here? You have moved point x to a different point in terms of y or y or not cap. You have moved into a different point y. A matrix is multiplied to a signal. Okay, it has rotated because of whatever channel gains it has produced. This will be 5, 2. Now, apply the same concept to your Euclidean distance. Apply the same principle to your Euclidean distance. The signal constellation points you have +1, -1, plus j, minus j. Now apply the same concept here. Now you are transmitting, let's say 1 plus j, you are transmitting 1 plus j and 1 minus j. Let's say you are transmitting 1 plus j here, 1 minus j here. If you multiply some other point, you will definitely get. That's what I was talking about from the beginning. So what is happening here? 5, 2, we will come back to this example. Vector x has been rotated and stretched. Okay, a new vector you have received, that is y cap or y, that is 5, 2. Means because of the channel gains, your signal 1, 3 represented somewhere here is shifted to 5, 2. A matrix which rotates any vector with an angle theta is given by, for this A, I will write it as the rotation vector. I will write the standard rotation vector cos theta minus sin theta, and cos theta. Okay, the rotation is happening by an angle theta. To stretch, this is rotation. Okay, rotation with an angle theta. To stretch, what you have to do? You have to use another, this I will call it as A1 and I will call it as A2. That I will write it as, say, some value constant alpha 0, 0, alpha. What is this? Alpha is the stretching parameter. Now what has happened here is the matrix A is made up of some combination of rotation and stretching. So H is made up of some rotation and stretching. So if you want to stretch the vector 1, 3, I had 1, 3, right? 1, 3, that is my symbol that is radiated. Let's say X, 1, 3 I have used. If you want to rotate it, if you want to stretch it by a factor, let's say 2, you substitute alpha is equal to 2, 2, 0, 0, 2 and multiply this, you will get 2, 6, correct? 1, 3 becomes 2, 6. That is, you never know what is happening here because the channel is stochastic, it is random. So observe this. I have a unit circle or a sphere or something like that. Okay, I have a vector over here, that is my v1. I will write v1 cap, and I have another vector over here. I will write it as v2 cap. So what happens to the state of the circle or sphere when it gets multiplied by a matrix? That is the big question. Okay, I'll write this as a sphere. Okay, sphere S. Now A is a matrix which is stretched or multiplied matrix that belongs to something like complex m cross n variables, complex m cross n matrix elements. Okay. Now if you're doing this stretching operation and if you stretch as n-dimensional sphere, let's say, if you stretch this with a factor A, okay, what happens? It becomes an ellipse, something like this, isn't it so? So this v1 and v2 will be transformed into new vectors. The whole thing will be new. Now a rough diagram I'm writing. Okay, don't be under impression that this is just a geometrical interpretation for you to understand. So v1, v2 you have something like multiplied by a factor A, that is the state of circle or sphere. When it multiplied by a matrix A, what happens here? You will have another vector on this axis. Let's say, let's call it as u1 cap and u2 cap. v1, v2 has been transformed into u1, u2. So this unit vectors u1 and u2 along two different directions. See, direction has been altered. Okay, unit vectors have been obtained. The whole thing is nothing but sigma 1 u1 and sigma 2 u2. What is happening here? See, this sigma 1 is there, no? Sigma 1 and sigma 2. That will show you what is the amount or the distance that it is covered. If you have see the distance it has covered from 1, 3, where was it? Yeah, from 1, 3, from point 1, 3, you have moved to 0.52 because of the multiplication. What is the distance that it has covered? Sigma 1 u1 and sigma 2 u2. What is the distance? How much distance that it has covered? So if you take v1, v2, v3 up to vn, like parallel decomposed channels like NT cross NR matrix, such n-dimensional spheres will give you n-dimensional hyperspheres, okay, hyperellipse. Oh, what have you understood from this? This is how much distance covered. Now, what have you understood from this? You have a vector x that you have transmitted channel gains as a matrix that is multiplied, and you will receive a symbol in terms of y that is equal to hx or ax. That is what? That is, you have started with what? v1 cap, v2 cap, so on and so forth up to vn cap you have. And you have transformed those into u1 cap, u2 cap, so on and so forth, un cap. So from one vector space with matrix multiplication to new space. What is the sigma and u? Sigma and u is nothing but, this is nothing but your singular value. Singular value. This u is nothing but principal axis. Okay. Now what have you understood? New directional sets that are obtained, that are orthogonal or orthonormal unit vectors by sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3, so on and so forth up to sigma n. That is stretching. So what have you understood? That is a v1 cap is equal to sigma 1 u1. U is unit vector of length. Unit vector u is equal to unit vector of length 1. Okay. Similarly, v2, v3 up to, let's say, a vj, I will write. That is equal to what? Sigma j uj. Correct? Now, if you observe this, ax is equal to lambda x, eigenvalue similarity. This is the eigenvalue similarity. Eigenvalue similarity. How do you write this eigenvalue similarity? A v cap, that is equal to lambda u cap. What is this A? A is nothing but, A is a matrix. A belongs to a complex m cross n matrix into, we have v1, v2, v3, v4 up to vj you have. That is equal to what? u1, u2, u3 up to, let's say, un I will write, into what you have, sigma 1, 0, 0, 0, something like that, 0, sigma 2, so on and so forth. Let's say 0, 0, sigma n. This is nothing but a diagonal matrix. So I will write this as a capital AV is equal to u cap sigma cap. What has happened? This is my rotation matrix, and this is my rotation, and this is my stretching. This is called unitary transformation. Unitary transformation. Now, this is all orthonormal basis function of an orthonormal set. Now, what do I write? I write inverse of the matrix is equal to its transpose, no? V inverse, I will write it as V conjugate. Okay. U cap inverse is equal to, I will write it as U cap conjugate. Properties, AV is equal to what? U cap sigma cap. Okay. Multiply by V inverse. If I multiply by V inverse, AV V inverse is equal to U cap sigma cap V inverse. So V inverse is identity. A into identity is equal to U cap sigma cap V inverse. Now A is equal to U cap sigma cap V conjugate, or A is equal to U cap sigma cap V Hermitian for a complex signal. A is equal to U sigma V Hermitian. That is what I have written no, here. H is equal to U sigma V Hermitian. Are you able to follow why it has happened like this? U sigma V Hermitian. You need a lot of insight in order to understand this concept. Okay. H is equal to this. H is equal to U sigma V Hermitian. If you write, what is that U sigma V Hermitian? U cap sigma cap V Hermitian. That is the reduced singular value decomposition. So in order to get that one single sentence, we need to understand so many things. Okay. So eigenvalue problem I can define actually. Eigenvalue problem graphically, if you represent what it will be, something like graphically, if you look at it, it will be a simple set that is A belongs to complex M cross N matrix that is equal to, you have another U cap matrix belongs to complex complex M cross N into you have a matrix like this. Okay, that is what sigma cap. That is also M cross N, and V Hermitian or V conjugate. That is an N cross N matrix. That's an N cross N matrix. So add silent rows so that it will become whether you have to understand that positive, definite, positive, semi-definite matrix in order to understand all these things. So there is one theorem actually, if I remember the theorem, singular values sigma j are uniquely determined, and if A is square, then the sigmas, whatever you are obtaining, you are going to obtain, that will be distinct, something like that is there. Singular vectors ui, uj, vi, vj are also unique up to some complex sign, but I don't want to prove all those things. If you use transpose, it will switches the order. Okay, M cross and N cross M becomes. So similarly, A into A transpose or A transpose A becomes equal to V sigma square V conjugate. You will have A transpose V is equal to V sigma square. We will have. So A transpose U is equal to U sigma square. That is the eigenvalue problem. That is self-adjoint, Hermitian, and real, positive, and distinct. So that is why you need to have little bit of linear algebra in order to appreciate this subject. So this is about singular value decomposition. After this singular value decomposition, what happens is you will have a matrix in this fashion. U Hermitian that is equal to identity, V Hermitian that is equal to U Hermitian that is unitary, that is U Hermitian is equal to IMR or INR, V Hermitian that can be written as IMT or INT. So the transmit precoding, if you want to write transmit precoding, and receiver shaping, if you want to understand, I can write it in terms of y tilde is equal to U Hermitian into Hx plus n, U Hermitian into Hx plus n. So what is U Hermitian? That is U Hermitian into U is equal to INR or IMR. Okay, IMR or INR. Similarly, V Hermitian V that is equal to V Hermitian V is equal to INT or IMT. Okay, that is the property, very simple property. Okay, U Hermitian into Hx plus n. If you write, what happens? H you have to substitute U sigma V Hermitian. If you substitute U Hermitian into, that is H is U sigma V Hermitian into X plus n. So finally you multiply U Hermitian. This is plus n. So what did I do? U sigma V Hermitian X plus n. So if you multiply this, you will get sigma, final equation sigma X tilde plus n tilde you will get. That is your y tilde. So how do you write that? You can write that mathematically, or a modeling kind of stuff can be written like this. You have parallel streams of data coming into the system. That is X is equal to, X is written as V into X tilde. Okay, and then this X what you are transmitting will be transmitted, and you have Y that is written as Y is equal to Hx plus n. Y is equal to Hx plus n, and you have something like this, and you have a Y that is Y tilde is equal to U Hermitian Y. You will have a Y tilde. See, this is transmit precoding and receiver shaping. What does it mean? It means you have a single channel that is X1 tilde, and you are multiplying this with some factor sigma 1, and it is getting added with the AWGN noise over here, that is N1 tilde. That is what is transmitted, and what is received over here is Y1 tilde. Such n number of XRN or XRH, XRH I will write, X tilde RH will be transmitted over here, and this will have sigma RH, and this will have a n tilde RH, and you will have a noise component getting added, and you will receive this y tilde RH. So y tilde is equal to sigma x cap or sigma x tilde plus n tilde. So n tilde is equal to what? U Hermitian n, and where sigma is what? The matrix of singular values of H, and sigma I on the ith diagonal and 0 elsewhere. So so multiplication by unitary matrix does not change the distribution of the noise. Multiplication by a unitary matrix does not alter the distribution. Whether it is Rayleigh, Riccian, Nakagami, Edwardian, whatever it is, it will not alter the distribution. So does not change the distribution of the noise, that is n and n tilde are identically distributed IID. Okay, and the transmit, precoding and receiver shaping transform the MIMO channel into RH parallel independent channels, where ith channel has input xi tilde, output yi tilde, and noise ni tilde, and channel gain sigma I. So sigma I are related because they are all the function of H, isn't it so? So since the resulting parallel channels do not interfere with each other, we say the channels with these gains are channels do not interfere with each other. So these channel gains are independent and linked only through the total power constraint. This is the principle behind studying the singular value decomposition. I think I'll stop at this stage, but I don't know, I'm not able to continue. Fine. With this, we will try to, I think I've solved some problems for SVD, singular value decomposition and all. And I'll share those videos with you. We will meet in the next class. Do we have class on next Monday?
No, sir, because
exam starts, no? Your exam starts. So I need 1.5 hours to finish this, probably 1 hour, 1.5 hours to finish this chapter. And only one equalization technique, whether it is MMSE or ML, I will decide, and within 1 hour I can finish. So maximum 2.5 hours would be sufficient for me to finish. So let's see. So there are only 166 students. I don't know. Okay. Fine. This completes the MIMO channel, and next is we have to understand what could be the channel capacity. What happens to the channel known at the transmitter in case of water filling? What happens to the channel capacity? If you have CSIT, CSIR, what could be the capacity? And if you don't have channel state information, and still if you have uniform power allocation, what could happen? And then finally, we will finish it off with no CSI at the transmitter or receiver, and simple trade-off we will study of diversity gain with the beamforming. Okay, so that finishes today's class, and I think one more session to finish this chapter. 1.5 hours will be sufficient. Okay, there was a problem with the students. What do you call creating files or something like that over Teams for our communication lab. So we will try to address that as of now, and I'll forward it to AGP sir so that your names will be added. So make sure you are available at 6 o'clock. Okay. So we will brief you about the lab every today, and then from next class onwards we will take it forward. Okay. Today we will give you one experiment. You can take that experiment. You can understand so many things in that. So from next class onwards we will start to give assignments, not from today. Okay, then fine. Then we'll try to meet at 6 o'clock.